The concept today is the mediator of a new covenant. So the covenant God makes with Noah is not the first covenant in the Bible. We can go back to the Adam covenant, and each one of these covenants is more like a renewal of the old, and we're also getting more details added to it. So all the blessings that came with the covenant is being preserved, and what he's removing is the curse that came from the disobedience. So still, what come from the fall here of the Adam covenant was that now they could be more fruitful and multiply. And before, Adam ruled over the earth, but he lost that. He kind of became the same level of eating what animals eat, perhaps. That he was fallen from the rulership, from the image of God. And here we may see, as we look at this passage, that it's talking about how now Noah is in the image of God, and it's going to be narrowed down, not just to like all of Adam, all of humankind, but to Noah and his seed with him. And here it's kind of narrowed down to Abraham and his seed. And God, instead of to Moses and his seed, it was those that God judged, he'll remove. And then it says that through David and his seed, and then it points to us to Messiah. And now it's through those who join to Messiah. But here in the Noah covenant, it's going to be those who join to Noah that will be part of this covenant. So it's through Noah. But first, let's go back and look at the state of the earth before God decides to renew this covenant that man had disobeyed and fallen from. So this word for dried up is actually different than Yavshah. This is more like a curse. So here's the meaning. There, it's waste, it's desolate, it's decayed, kind of like the state of before creation, where the world is tohu and bohu, perhaps, in Genesis 1-2. So what is a state of waste is that the waters upon the earth, and this may point us to people's souls, that their inclination is evil from their youth. It's dried up. It's a state of destruction because it's cut off from God. So their inclination is just rage. It's that animal nature. And also, he's removing this covering that would protect them if there was another flood. So they have no covering over them now. And later we'll learn about the rainbow that is like a covering that God looks at. And so also, behold, what else is dry is the face of the ground, but it's more like this state of desolation. So you could picture that there's just total destruction. Nothing can grow. Nothing is growing, maybe. It's going to take some time for the light to shine. And this is like a different time. The first month, it's the state of destruction. And it takes a little bit of time now in the second month, and the 27th day of the month. Now it's just dried up. But you could see it's like this swampy, wilted plants just laying around, and bodies may be laying around. So he's looking around here at this total just state of also the face of the ground. So you could also think about maybe our bodies. They're just this state of destruction, and then they just completely are just dried up, as in completely cut off from God. Verse 17 of chapter 8, all life is toward Noah, from all flesh, the fowl, the tamed animals, and all these creeping things. So only the fowl and the tamed animals were clean, and so that means all these creeping things were probably corrupted flesh, that they were more cursed because they were less upright. They're creeping on the ground more likely. That creeps upon the earth. And he's giving them a blessing so there's one blessing, but the firstborn gets a double portion. So we're going to see in the next chapter that God repeats this blessing because it's a double portion towards Noah. And so they went out, and all the life from all the creeping things and all the fowl all crept upon the earth, all creeping upon the earth. So this is like an indication that all life in some way was fallen, was like this lowered soul from where it was perpetually, even after the flood. Even after the floods, it didn't fix their inclination of their heart. So the flesh is going to continue to desire to do evil, and the spirit of that soul, that nephesh, or maybe like you think of the water within, that life within that they're receiving from, is like destroyed. And we need this renewed covenant. They're cut off. So this is the state that they're in, that they're all, in a way, because this is like both things, all life, all creeping things, and all birds. The life could be like the life of the field, the wild beasts. So these are all animals here, and it's all of them in general are now creeping things upon the earth. Their soul is no longer upright, where they're thinking intellectually, receiving from God. So they're fallen down where they're not in a state to receive. And so they're just in families of them. They're lost. They're cut off from God. So how is God not going to curse them again? What he needs is a mediator. So instead of continuing to just blame the flesh that is now cut off, what he needs to do is to have the Spirit of God reconnected with that flesh so that it can be transformed. He can't just continue blaming the flesh. He needs to transform it. He needs a mediator. At this point, it seems like God did not ask Noah to give back to God all that God had permitted for him. So to Moses, God specified what clean animals were, and you only eat of these. These were the only ones that he'd given to them. And so at this point, remember that the covenant is kind of broken on man's part. The beasts don't respect mankind probably, and man is basically, all flesh is on this state of just creeping on the earth in some fashion compared to where they came from. So Noah didn't have to do this, and I don't think God is going to like impress upon your heart that you have to give, because you don't have to, that you have to give all from all that God has permitted for you to have back to him. But Noah did this. He sacrificed it. He surrendered it to God and said, I'm not going to just eat this for myself. I'm going to give it wholly to you to be burned up on the altar for you to do what you want with. So this was all that Noah could have just partaken of. It was his to have. It was clean. It was permissible. But instead, he takes from all that, first of all, and he offers it up upon the altar. God smells this sweet savor, and he says, I'm not going to again curse the ground, because this imagination of mankind's heart is just perpetually evil ever since his youth. And he's never going to again smite all that life within the flesh. The flesh is evil, and it's also not going to dry up the flesh where the life leaves them, and so it's a dead soul now, such as he has done now there's going to be seasons. So what causes the rainbow later is, instead of this thick layer of water, probably, where you can't have these times and seasons, so they're in this state of a curse, perpetual curse before the flood. Now that there is seasonal rain coming down in its time, that's not going to inundate the earth, overwhelm it. Also, the light being able to reach the earth. So this is a picture of Messiah, but here it's of Noah being this mediator, that the light can come because there was somebody who is now going to be elevated back into God's image, because they're not going to remain in this state that the animals are in and all of flesh is in this state of destruction. God is going to give him a double blessing and elevate him above all of the beasts. So the rainbow, what makes the rainbow possible is because now there's somebody who's willing to receive the light, who's willing to receive the Spirit of God. And so now God's Spirit has rest. And through that mediator, now the rest of the earth will not be cut off anymore, because they're connected to this mediator. They're with Noah. So now, with this covenant being renewed, all these blessings of being fruitful and multiply, the increased conception that came from the fall, is still there. He's just removed the curse. He's not going to curse anymore. It's a perpetual removal of the ground that God has cursed. And he gets a double blessing, blessed above all these other animals. And what's going to happen is that they will fear him and dread him. But I think it's because they recognize that he is upright, that he has this higher version of their wisdom, their understanding, their knowledge, that there's like this trust that he's in a place to lead them, where they can come to him and receive from him, that they're not able to like provide on their own, or they'll perish. Especially like these clean animals are going to be more likely to submit to him. So it's all these that are willing to come to him. And so this word for fear of you is like what Adam got because of his sin. Once he hears the voice of God walking in the garden, now he has this fear because he is exposed. He knows that he has committed sin, that he's in this state of death. And so they have what these animals, what all of life now besides Noah and his seed have, is this fear. And actually that's like the beginning where we need to have this fear, this recognizing that God is greater than us. And then once we actually are in his presence, he says, fear not, but to first fear God and to seek the wisdom of God. And so that's what these lives can recognize in Noah now. When Noah gives to God what God permitted for him to have, he gives from all that God gave him. Not only does God restore his rulership over all the earth, but now he has extended his borders to also over all the fish of the sea. So the fish of the sea were like permissible. So like God opens up where we didn't even realize all the life that we could have experienced. So now Noah is like life more abundantly. He has so much more. And then all this flesh that is of the dry in this perpetual fallen state, he can partake of. And this is like the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So before it was like just the good. And he's elevating the evil now by partaking of it. It's like kind of having this fellowship with it, but not in a way that contaminates him with its blood, and not in a way that shares in its soul. So you need to, you can't partake of that life that is in it, its blood and its soul. But of the part that is just dry and cut off from God, we know that there is nothing evil in itself. And so this teaches us about reaching the Gentiles. What God has cleansed, do not call unholy. So before, what he could eat was of the green. This was living. And now he can also, to you, all things, which was not, is like the leaves that fall off the tree. It's of the dry. But to not eat of it in a way that you want to be elevated. You're not going to that, but instead you're partaking of it. You're having this connection with it in order to elevate it back to God. So it's like when the firstborn is clean, then all that touch it can become clean. But the caution is to not be brought down by anything, because when you partake of people who are rebellious, you don't want to be one flesh with that. What you want to do is just enough where they're going to be transformed. They're also going to become holy like you are holy. So what is purely holy, this living water, nothing can contaminate it. Or what touches the altar becomes holy. You can't contaminate what is completely pure. So the caution, though, is to not partake in an unworthy manner. With the new covenant, you are the image of God. So your intent in your fellowship with the world should be to elevate them, to connect them to God, so that the covenant can extend to them, instead of being your God being your belly and you just doing whatever it is you want, having fellowship with a harlot in an unclean way. So you need to be surrendered to the will of God, just like Noah was. God, what is your will? I'm not going to take charge of, now that you've given me the whole earth, I'm not going to just take charge and do it however I think. I'm going to interpret your word. So that your temple, you are the image of God. So if you cause that image to be destroyed by eating in an unworthy manner of what God has given you, then you are now cut off from God. You're now fallen. That's like spilling man's blood. You're falling from that image that covenant has restored you to. And as we're all brothers in this same family of God, if anyone was like Cain and Abel, where Cain caused his brother to be shortened from that image of God, where he sheds his blood, then it's going to be required of that false teacher, of that one who caused his brother to stumble, anyone who causes somebody else to fall from that sacred temple, that image of God, God is going to require him. What happened when Cain spilt his brother's blood is that Cain now became fallen. So if anybody causes to spill that life force, that soul that is in the atom, in one of your brothers, then also it's going to cause that person that spilt it to become fallen. That life that was in them is going to leave. They're going to return to being these creeping, debased souls that are cut off from God, needing a mediator once more, a restoral of the covenant. Due to Adam not seeking to keep what God has given him as his own, thus cutting off what God has given him because he just wants to rule over it, now God is causing to stand. Now he's going to be upright. Within Noah is going to be able to consume God. He's connected again with source. So what he's partaking of now is God. So when he eats of the dry, it's not so that he can be elevated. It's not to boost him so he can rule over it. He's not using it for himself. He's serving everything in order to reconnect it with God. So this word for bereat is coming from a word that eat, choose, give, cause to eat. So what God does with his covenant is all you need to eat of is God. Eat all of Messiah. That's the one that you need. So these renewals of the covenant is us being able to partake a restored fellowship with God. That's the one we're having fellowship with. Now that the light can shine through because we have a mediator, someone that God's Spirit can dwell in, someone who doesn't want to just use what God has given him for his own pleasure, but submits it to the pleasure and will of God. That light coming through now enables all those things that weren't in a place on their own to do what Noah did, to, as they're connected at least with this mediator, then also they can receive of that light, they can eat and partake. So, and with all souls, the living souls which are towards you, so they have to accept Noah, they have to be towards him. They're not, it's the ones that Noah's able to elevate by having that connection with them. It's like this mutual connection. The fowls, the tamed cattle, and all life of the earth, at you from all which went out from the ark to all life of the earth. So it's just this through Messiah and us being his body, we can restore everything back to God. He's causing to stand. So the covenant is not with the animals directly, but he's causing to stand that fellowship of communion, of being able to receive from God at you, and these are no longer going to be cut off because of him partaking of all flesh. All flesh, no more from the waters of the flood. There will not be any more a flood to destroy the earth. God does not look at sin. So what is sinful is cut off from God. He does not receive from his gaze. But what he does look at is the bow. So what proceeds from the Father is the Son. The glory that surrounds him, all the light that emanates from him, this is the Son. So here in Revelation 10, there's a mighty angel coming down from heaven, and the persona of him is like King David, where he has this rainbow on his head, and the one that we are looking for is the one that comes in a cloud. And this is it doesn't say, maybe it's definite, it doesn't look like a the. In or the cloud, we're looking for Messiah to come, but when people see him, what they may see is just this glory. It's this mixture of like the light and the water. It's this glory of God that appears in the cloud, just like this mighty angel coming down. What he sees is the light. Like you can't just make out maybe the features of his face. His light, the light of him in Revelation 1 is shining so brightly. His face is shining like the sun. So what God sees now is this glory, this bow that is it is set in the cloud for a token of the covenant between him and the earth. This word for when I will bring, it's actually the same exact spelling as the word for cloud. In my cloud, but it's the verb form. When I cloud a cloud upon the earth, what we'll be seeing is this glory, this bow in the cloud. But I want to look at the word here because it's like this passage of time, which could be a negative thing if people are doing it on their own. But the one who actually causes, they think to change times and seasons, but the one who actually brings about these times and seasons, brings about the end of the age, is God. So in this passage of time, when the time is right, and he clouds upon the earth, this glory is going to be seen in the cloud. And instead of seeing that all flesh is sinful, and that they're cut off, that he can't actually see them, that he instead sees that they are connected, because what he sees is this glory that comes in the passage of time. When the time is right, it's going to appear in the cloud. Due to the one who's willing to surrender, sacrifice fully to God, to be this connected vessel, now this light, this glory, will be in the cloud. And this is like a mediator that God looks at, and he's causing to stand his covenant with all flesh. First, like through the mediator and through Noah and through all flesh. Otherwise, they would be destroyed again. But because this mediator stays there, because this rainbow, this glory is in the cloud, the light is able to now reach all, the glory can cover all the earth now. They're no longer going to be cut off. And so he no longer needs to curse them, because he's not seeing the sin that is this perpetual flesh, this dried up vessel. What he sees is the mediator, this glory, what has proceeded from the Father, that is all pure and good. That's all that he sees. So this covenant then can continue to stand, and there is no more curse. That is the concept of the mediator of a better covenant.